I'm going to keep my comments relatively short since I'm pretty sure that most of you would like to hear our new coach speak. It's been an exciting summer, still going on with some terrific games. Barcelona Man U over the weekend, lots of MLS games, big crowds, the excitement of the Women's World Cup, the excitement of the Gold Cup setting all sorts of records in attendance and television ratings. Some ups and downs, obviously, for our teams on the field, but overall, the health of the sport in the country certainly is quite good and headed in the right direction. That doesn't mean there won't be wins and losses along the way, but we're very pleased generally with where the sport is headed. Having said that, I think today is a very important day and perhaps starting a new era for us. We're extraordinarily excited about having Jurgen Klinsmann join our team, to lead our team and to help lead our technical programs. Jurgen's experience, both as a player and as a coach, and as a resident of this country, and I think all three of those are important, we think are all huge assets. And that latter solves the issue that of whenever we think about an international coach, will they know America? Will they know the difference between Duke and the Portland Timbers? And how long will that take? And all of the things that are specific to the U.S., the role of education, the geography, and so on. Jurgen has that. He's been a resident of the country for 13 years, has studied the country and has studied a lot of things, as many of you know, has lived around the world, is multilingual, and that's in addition to the vast playing experience and obviously the coaching experience with the German national team in Bayern Munich. His record is extraordinary. It speaks for itself. We've had discussions, as has been widely reported, for quite some time. We're going to focus today on what we're doing forward, although I'm sure there's some interest in how we got to today, and we'll address that. But we really want to focus on going forward and the excitement in the sport. And it's also, frankly, a reflection of where the sport is, that there's been so much interest in this announcement, in the fate of the national team, and we think all of those things are positive. Having said that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce the new coach of the U.S. men's national team, Jurgen Klinsmann.
Thank you. All right, one more. Good. Yeah. Well, Sunil, thank you very much for all those kind words. Thanks for having me here today, and I'm pretty excited. I'm really excited about this opportunity, this chance to coach the U.S. team. And having lived here, as Sunil said, for the last 13 years, and also, kind of got to know the U.S. soccer environment for quite some time, having connected with this country in all sorts of environments, if it's the kids or youth level, if it's the college system, if it's MLS, where I about 10 years ago did some work with Sigi Schmidt at the Galaxy, developed a little bit in the background the Home Depot Center with Tim Lawicki and the people. There has always been kind of this feeling around, maybe one day you get the opportunity to coach the US team. Then obviously, as most of you know, then I took over Germany for 2 years, guiding to the World Cup 2006. Then I had a 1-year experience with Bayern Munich. But I always kind of stayed, because of also family reasons, deeply connected with the US game. So now, this is a big moment for me personally too, for us as a family. And I'm really proud that I get that opportunity to be part of the future of US soccer. So it's going to be a challenge, absolutely. It's going to be quite demanding the next couple of weeks to get your hands around. There's a game coming up next week against Mexico already in Philadelphia. So, it's a lot to do. Basically, calling up the players now, getting a squad together, knowing that it's going to be not so easy since a lot of players, had their breaks. Some of them haven't even played a game yet in the new season in Europe. But that's all just part of the job, and I'm really excited about that opportunity on all kind of levels. I'm obviously talking with Sunil and with a lot of people here in the U.S. soccer environment. It's about the bigger picture. It's about, obviously, main responsibility is the men's team and moving that program forward. But it's also about discussing, with a lot of people here involved in the game about what happens in the youth scene, what happens in all the developmental areas. So it is an exciting moment, and I want to thank you for coming today, and give me such a wonderful reception.
Hi, congratulations, Jurgen. Grant Wall, Sports Illustrated. Less than a year ago, you had a chance to take this job and decided not to for, I guess, reasons of control. And I guess what I'm wondering is, how much of that control did you get this time in deciding to take this job?
Well, we had over years, Sunil and I, obviously talks, but also talks just in general, not only about, being maybe one day head coach of the U.S. team, but always about, where's the game in this country? What are the big issues on the table, and what are the challenges ahead? And throughout those years, there were always different moments and maybe also different opinions, which is normal. So it was maybe never really the moment there. Now there is, there's a feeling of understanding that, okay, it is just a moment of a certain comfort level between the two of us, between the whole federation and myself. And it's not about power. It's really about a lot of kind of topics that float around, about challenges, and there's so much going on in this country right now. I mean, since 1 or 2 years, you see all the academy clubs rising basically on the youth level, which is a big topic. You see, where the youth national team's going. And you see, obviously, the development of the men's and the women's team, and their direction. So there's always, different moments and different timings. It seems like now the timing is right. It seems we had, a clear understanding of what we want to do, and that's why I'm really happy that we found now this really comfort level of moving forward.
Let me add to that. So I looked at the comments from a year ago. Between us, there's never been an issue about this so-called control. I think it's a bit of a red herring. What Jurgen's comments previously were about being able to incorporate that into a piece of paper. So the understanding that we've had about how we're going to move forward and collaborate, frankly, has been pretty clear for many years. How to best incorporate that is something we've been able to get through, and you're going to see a collaborative effort in all areas. We didn't do this on a handshake, that's right.
We'll come over here, in the front row in the blue.
Sunil, this is Luke Cyphers from ESPN Magazine. Why now? Why did you make the change at this point? Was it results, or what were your criteria?
Part of it is always results. We take time after every major competition to reflect on the competition and what's led up to that competition. So it's not a single game or a single result. It's where the program is, how comfortable we feel in the direction that it's going, based partly on results, for sure, partly on looking at the last year, and made a decision that it was time to make a change, and the timing is never good for a change. We have a game in 8 days, 9 days, so that's not an easy situation for Jurgen to walk into. With, in some cases, players have been contacted. He may or may not choose all of those same players. But after the Gold Cup, which is a benchmark for us, obviously, it was a natural time to look at where we were.
Jurgen. Hi, Leanne Sharlock and ESPN.com. What is wrong with this team, and how do you intend to fix it?
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with the team. I mean, they lost a Gold Cup final against a very, very good Mexican team that, over the last couple of years became one of the top 10 teams in the world. They have a lot of talent. So I think that, when you come into a situation like this, you analyze every individual players, you analyze, the team at itself, you analyze the program, which I get the chance over the next couple of weeks, and see, how you can develop that further. So you build basically on what was built already before. And I mean, if you look back the last 20 years in this country, a lot has been built. I mean, the U.S. has always been, since 90, qualified for a World Cup. The U.S. kind of made a lot of noise, with MLS, getting MLS introduced. Now look where MLS is. I mean, I know in the beginning, there were 8 or 10 teams. Half of the teams were kind of supported by Phil Unschutz. Otherwise, it would have been folded already after 2-3 years. Now you have a league with 18 teams growing next year again. You have youth development programs being introduced with the academy program, with stuff like that. It's come a long way, soccer in the United States. And I'm now getting this opportunity to move it further, to build on what has already been built by Bob the last 5 years, before that by Bruce Arena, before that by Steve Sampson, and so on. So I'm proud to get that opportunity. But certainly, having lived and played abroad in different countries, Italy, England, France, obviously Germany, I have my own ideas of how to move forward a program. And I will, step by step, introduce some ideas that I have, but always checking, if it suits the American game. So I'm not coming in here and play the European guy, because I live here since 13 years. So I think I know a lot about certain issues that are around here, but I think you also can be proud of what you achieved already over the last 20 years, and, where soccer is now. I mean, look at this press conference, look at 3 or 4 soccer-related television channels. Who would have thought that 15 years ago? So it's a lot of movement going on, and I want to be part of that movement, and and help out with it. So a lot to do.
First of all, happy birthday, zum Geburtstag. Welcome back on the international soccer stage. I think the international soccer is miss you so much. My 2 quick questions. What was your family reaction when you accept this job? And did you follow the Herbalife World Challenge? So there is any evaluation when the MLS teams meet some the world's best teams, like Manchester, FC Barcelona?
Well, part one, family is very happy, obviously, about that decision, so no need to move back overseas for right now. And so they're also proud, absolutely, because my family is probably more American than German, because the kids are raised here in the United States. So they're extremely happy with that decision. I mean, the last couple of weeks, seeing all those international games, having MLS teams being involved in those international friendlies is another sign of where this game has come over the last years. And I mean, this is exciting. You have a league with 18 teams playing 34 league games, plus now you have these international exhibitions where every player can learn a lot from, big teams that came into the country. So the awareness is just getting bigger and bigger of soccer in this country. And you saw the crowds, you saw full stadiums, packed with people, and that's what I meant before. It's growing. Soccer is growing, and you can't stop soccer anymore in this country. Are there still a lot of topics to discuss, a lot of areas to improve? Yes, absolutely, but that's what we're trying to do over the next years.
Michael?
Yeah, Michael Lewis, BigAppleSoccer.com, TrophyGold.com. Hey, Sunil, multiple questions for you. One, when did you make the decision on Bob Bradley? What was the meeting like with him last week? And then moving on to Jurgen, talk about the significance of him being a World Cup champion and a World Cup coach, and what that brings to the team, if you could elaborate on that.
On the first question, as you said, after the Gold Cup, we started to review the year and the 5 years, and in the last 10 days, 10 to 14 days, I guess, came to some conclusions, and that's Dan Flynn, our CEO, and I, for the most part. Dan is here. So, quite recently, I don't think I'm going to get into details of the meeting with Bob. These are always difficult situations. Bob's done a very good job with the national team, and has been a good friend long before he was the national team coach and I was U.S. Soccer president. So those moments are difficult, and I think that's all I'm going to say about our meeting. With regards to Jurgen, obviously it's a great thing that to have someone who's been there, who's been on the winners' stand at the World Cup, at the European Championship. That's a unique situation. He's had a bronze medal as a coach at the World Cup. So for us, that's a fantastic situation. That who's played at the very highest level, coached at the very highest level with Bayern and with Germany, but to have actually tasted the success of winning a World Cup, we think was a plus for sure.
Sunil, Frank GS, North Star Ledger, here.
Yep.
Are you under the belief that a coach in a second World Cup cycle doesn't have the same response from the players? And if that's true, having said that, it might take him 3 years just to get the program he wants in order and another cycle to get the players he wants in order. Are you comfortable with a 7-year commitment, and what is the length of the contract?
So the second cycle issue is always an awkward question because most coaches that aren't very successful it's defined at some level for their own circumstances in their own country don't get that opportunity, and those that do have generally done well in the first cycle. So to improve on a good performance is never easy. So, I mean, on statistical grounds, there's not many of them, and it's not easy to measure. The commitment we've made for now is through the World Cup. So it's not a 7-year commitment, and we'll look at that along the way. There are, in the case of Europe, there are 4- and 6-year commitments quite often around a European championship. The Gold Cup has become increasingly more important for us when it leads to the Confederations Cup and as a competition in itself. So, we're worrying about the next 3 years, the next 9 days with a game right off the bat, and we'll see how it goes over that period of time. I think obviously in the case of Germany, Jurgen was able to get comfortable relatively quickly, not in 7 days, to get that team ready, and we'll look forward to that over the next 3 years.
Matt Futterman from the Wall Street Journal. Is there really an American approach to this game? You talk about this gulf between I'm not the European guy, or is there just good soccer?
I deeply believe that soccer in a certain way reflects the culture of a country. And so, having studied the US culture over the last 13 years, it's quite a challenge because you have such a melting pot in this country that so many different opinions and ideas floating around there. I mean, every coach obviously has his own ideas, then you have kind of the whole challenge of youth soccer in this country being based in a very different model than anywhere else in the world. Your educational system is completely different than the rest of the world. So one of my challenges will be, to find a way to define, how, a U.S. team should represent its country. What should be the style of play? Is it more proactive and aggressive kind of forward-thinking style of play, or is it more a reacting style of play? Because that comes with, obviously, with the players that you have at your disposal, but also with the people that you're surrounded with, and the people that have an opinion in this country, like the media, like coaches, and there's such a wealth of knowledge in this country. It's in Europe or in South America, it's unheard of, because most of, the college coaches, have a 4-year education as well. Traditionally in Europe, it works like you become a pro, at the age of 18, so you never get to college, you know. So I think it is important that over the next 3 years, or especially in the beginning, then that I have a lot of conversations with people involved in the game here to find a way to define that style. What suits us best? What would you like to see? What would you like to identify with? I think a great example is certainly the women's team, how they played their World Cup final. I think this is how America wanted to see their girls play that game, and they did an awesome job. So it will be one of our main topics always, sitting down and discuss that. But it should reflect your mentality and your culture. And I mean, if you talk about Brazil, you know how Brazil plays. It's just, you know about Argentina, you know about Italy. They sit back and they wait for one mistake you're going to do and they kill you. And we defined that with Germany in 2004, which was a very, very difficult process, but we worked through that process, and now, it's settled, that style of play. So, I mean, your opinion is important. Coaches, college coaches' opinions are important. Youth coaches' opinions. I mean, everyone is involved in that process. Players as well. So, I'm looking forward to a lot of talks.
Yeah, it's just had to add, and this is, I think, probably prior to us having any discussions about coaching the team after the World Cup in Germany, and Jurgen outlined what he had done when he had first gone to Germany on that issue of style and why that German team felt, played, and looked different than previous teams. And it's exactly what he just outlined, which we were fascinated with, that he had essentially had a series of conversations, and in some sense with the country, but with players, with coaches, with media, about what they expected, what they wanted German soccer to represent at the international level. And frankly, given the diversity of this country, that sort of dialogue here, I think is exciting.
We'll go in the middle here.
Jurgen, Alex Labadie from Goal.com. I have two questions. Have you had a chance to speak with any of the players on the team? And are you looking at your staff moving forward before Mexico?
I spoke to about 5-6 players over the weekend. Obviously, we were extremely busy to get this whole thing organized, and get officially, basically, ready to work and move forward towards the Mexico game. So I spoke to 5-6 players. I will call the whole rest tomorrow. I mean, I pretty much have a picture where they're at right now with their club teams, especially if you look at the overseas players, their personal situations. Some without a club actually right now. So it's not going to be easy to really form a highly competitive team for next week, but we will get it off the ground. That being said, by the staff, building a staff. Me and Sunil and Dan, we had a good talk about that too. I would like to approach it the way that I will work from game to game, probably with different people. I won't confirm a full-time staff, over the next couple of months, because I want to see what's out there. There are a lot of good, highly qualified coaches in the U.S. that I might not know. So I need to talk to people. I need to understand, what's out there. And we'll talk to a lot of MLS coaches, obviously, and get their perspective, and see, who can I invite, as guest coaches, guest assistant coaches, basically, So I won't come in and say, this is my staff. It was a different situation 7 years ago with Germany because of, the media pressure and the speculations. You needed to calm down that right away. I think here, because not jumping into qualifying right away, we have that opportunity. We have exhibition games now. So I can try out also different coaches on my side to see, how they're doing. I had a great conversation with Claudio Reyna. I want Claudio very close to me in terms of helping him in his new role as a technical director for youth development at the federation. So he will be always part of the staff. He will sit with us coaches on the table, so I can tell him, how I look at the game and how we kind of be of help to him. I spoke to Tab Ramos, who's right now the under-20 coach for right now. I want his perspective. I want his information about what's coming through at the under-20 and the 17 level. Even if I saw some of the games already, I kind of know already most of the players from watching them. But I will take my time. I will take my time. So hopefully by Wednesday, we can announce the roster for the Mexico game, so give you a clear picture who's on that roster for 20 players, around 20 players, and also announce then, who will be my assistants on the training field and on the bench then basically. But it won't be a coaching staff that will be confirmed for the next 3 years to go. We take our time. I want to make sure that I get to know a lot of different people, different approaches, because covering this country here is just a different challenge than a small country like Germany.
We'll go to the right over here.
Hi, Jurgen. Congratulations. Greg Lawless from MLSsoccer.com. Here in the United States, we have a lot of conversations about foreign coaches versus domestic coaches. What are your thoughts on that whole topic and whether it's important to have a domestic or a foreign coach?
Well, it is. I mean, there are pros and cons, obviously. I think foreign coaches can bring a lot to the table because of their experience to certain high intense environments. If you coach a national team in South America or Europe, or a club team, you're in a daily grind. I mean, this is really something that you have to deal daily with this amount of journalists, then instead of once in a while. And you have a different perspective on the game. You are used to work in a different environment. But I think it is important to understand the specifics of U.S. soccer. I think it's important to understand your culture, how you grow up and where your emotions, where are your priorities. It took me years to understand, how important this whole educational path for people is in this country. I never got it, the first couple of years. I said, well, why is the program really not that important to people? Why is it always about where are you going to college? What's the high school? Where are your kids going to school? I always respond, my kids going to school, the next closest school, what's the big deal? But over years then I started to understand, okay, those are the reasons why you think that way, and that's because it's just a completely different setup. So it is important that I know all those things, and it's important when a foreign coach comes in that he gets also the time to understand all those mechanisms. Now, you always have to kind of consider then different people in different roles, One thing is to coach the U.S. team in here and develop players in this country, for their future time. The other thing is you maybe have to prepare them for a World Cup in Brazil or a World Cup in wherever in Europe. Suddenly totally other circumstances come in there where maybe, a U.S. coach in that moment is very comfortable in whatever happens in this country, but suddenly is out of his comfort zone when he's in Brazil and deals with different nations and different style of plays and different issues there, So, that is one of the kind of fascinating topics we will have over the next months and years is, what people can we work with also on a global base? It doesn't mean that you maybe bring in an assistant coach from Europe just to have an assistant coach from Europe, but maybe you have some people in Europe that actually help to work with the U.S. Soccer Federation, and they live in Europe. You have the case that probably 2/3 of your squad of the best 20 players are in Europe. So maybe a thought is, should we have somebody in Europe to oversee those players so I don't need to fly back and forth every weekend? So I will build with Sunil together and Dan together, we will build a network of people that help U.S. soccer to move forward, and quietly. It doesn't need to be on the media surface, but it's amazing to talk to, foreign coaches about what happened here in the U.S. If you talk to coaches, a good friend of mine is Berti Vogtov is in Germany, or Menotti in Argentina, or Pereira in Brazil. When I talk to these coaches, they admire what happened here the last 20 years. Carlos Alberto, he was here for a year, he experienced MLS himself, which was a huge challenge for him because he didn't know how things work. Suddenly there was a draft, and he said, what is that? It's a draft, we don't have that in Europe and South America. So, but to learn from those coaches, maybe for your own program, is also very important, I think, and I will build that. I have most of the relationships already. I will build further relationships with coaches abroad and then see what is best then for U.S. soccer.
We'll have 2 questions in the front, and then we'll go in the back here.
Hi, Jurgen. Tim Leonard from the Bergen Record. Congratulations on the job. The one thing I wanted to ask you about the youth programs, and you talked about that a little bit before. Would you like to see a uniform style of play for the youth systems here? And what sort of changes would you like to see in the youth system here? And was that at any point a sticking point in the negotiations?
Oh no, that was never a sticking point. It's actually a fascinating point, and I think yes, the youth teams should reflect again, the mixture of your cultures. It should reflect what's going on in this country, and there's so much going on, and that's why I think Claudia Reyna's role is very, very important, to find a path, with us together, how those teams should play and how they, should be put together. I mean, there's so much influence coming from the Latin environment over the last 15, 20 years that also has to be reflected in the U.S. national team. And you have so many kids with dual citizenship, Mexican or other, Central American countries and American. So that will be always a topic to discuss. Obviously, you won't have a copy, in your under 20 or under 17 of the men's national team because, players are different. Players have all different characteristics. So every coach needs to find his own little path of how to put things together. But overall, it should be kind of a broader understanding of how also the youth teams should play. And this will be one of, the main topics going forward is what was started from U.S. soccer with the youth academies, it will expand, it will get bigger and bigger. So all these discussions are important and are also important for you media to have your say in it, and because the people out there, and I talk to a lot of youth coaches, my boys playing youth soccer, my girl as well, and they all wait for kind of information, They are very knowledgeable on the youth level in this country, but they also, ask those same questions. So I think there's a huge opportunity to discuss things and to bring, different people in and hopefully define more and more how, the style should look like.
Over here on your left, all the way over.
There you go.
When you say that the style of play should reflect the mentality of the country, understanding you said you still have some homework to do on this, people you want to talk to. But today, on August 1st, how would you describe the mentality of this country?
Whoa.
All yours. He was on with Boehner and Reed last night, so I'm not sure what else was going on.
Well, studying your culture and obviously having an American wife, and American kids mainly, it's right now my understanding is a little bit that you don't like to react to what other people do. I think this is maybe a starting point. I think America never really waits and sees, and leaves it up to other people to decide what is next. I think America always likes to decide on its own what is next. So this guides maybe towards more a proactive style of play where you would like maybe to impose a little bit the game on your opponents instead of sitting back and wait what your opponent is doing and react to it. Obviously, this depends also on your opponents. If you play Brazil or Argentina, you might play differently than you play maybe a country in CONCACAF. But it is a starting point. It's if you say, we want to kind of start to keep possession, we want to start to dictate the pace of the game, we want to kind of challenge our players to improve technically in order to keep the ball. So all those components you have to build into your training sessions. You have to build it into a curriculum for the youngsters too, because the earlier they start with that type of work, the better it is. Barcelona was not born in the last couple of years. It was born basically the style of play now in the early 90s through Johan Cruyff. So that took 20 years to that moment today that we see and all admire, but just to take an example. So I'm really curious to hear all the different opinions out there, but I think, we are kind of put in a driver's seat, especially what CONCACAF is related, and it depends a lot on the experience of the players that they make overseas, when they move overseas, hopefully at the right age, going overseas. So we will define that in bullet points, step by step, and also communicate it then.
Jurgen. One last question, and then we'll go in the back. Thank you.
Eben Novi-Williams, Bloomberg News. Not asking you for a prediction, but would love to hear your expectations for the team over the next few years. Is this American team good enough to compete for a final in the World Cup in 3 years? And what do you anticipate to be the biggest hurdle that you have as a coach of this team?
Expectations. I mean, expectations are always based on what was built the last 10, 15 years. You know, when you coach Germany, the expectations are being in the final. Other than the final, country is not happy. Now, I think expectations here certainly are different because how the game grew in the last 10, 20 years. You know, I think a quarterfinal is already huge. You know, I think going through the group stage is really, really important. And then you go into the knockout stage where anything is possible, you know. But obviously you want to improve. You want to get better. You want to, you know, be better than the last World Cup and the World Cup before. But, you know, you can't promise anything because once you're in a knockout stage, I mean, anything can happen. I think there are a lot of different challenges ahead of us, you know, especially on a foundation level. And the foundation is youth, you know, how they should be trained, how often they should train, how much time they should spend with the ball, how they should develop their talent, you know, and it all feeds into into Claudio's new role here. But this is really important to be addressed from the beginning on, because I think this is what is still missing, really missing compared to the leading soccer nations around the world, the first 10, 12 nations around the world, is the amount of time kids play the game, you know. And if you have a kid that plays in Mexico 20 hours a week, you know, maybe 4 hours organized soccer, but 16 hours unorganized soccer, just banging the ball around in the neighborhood. But if he gets up to 20 hours, doesn't matter how he plays it, with his dad or with his buddies in the street, this will show later on with his technical abilities, with his passing, with his instinct on the field and all those things. And I think that's certainly an area where a lot of work is ahead of us, because if you look at the MLS, you know, did major steps forward. It's come a long way, but it's still a very, very hectic, kind of a little bit style from the college system played game, which, you know, slowly we have to kind of get it more on a technical level. We have to get it on a more comfortable level with the ball, and so they're all developmental issues. I think, you know, they're pro and cons, and it's come a long way, but we have quite a way to go still to break into those top 10 in the world. I think we need to be realistic that we are not belonging there right now. Not yet.
Great. Thank you, Jurgen. Thank you, Sunil. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move Jurgen to the back, or to the front of the store, actually, for mix zone. So the cameras that are not doing one-on-ones, please move back there and be prepared. We'll bring them over in a couple minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you.